The analogy we use is that of what I call a woodpile system. Now, I always love to ask, how many of you are familiar with the books that Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote, The Little House on the Prairie, the whole series? You read them all, didn't you? You read a good number of them. But there's Little House on the Prairie, Long Winter, Farm Boy. There are a few others, but basically it's about life in the middle of the United States, how rough and rugged it was. And in one of those books, she goes on, probably The Long Winter, she goes on at some detail about how families on the prairie, so to speak, prepared for the winters, which were very, very severe winters. And if they didn't prepare properly, that had some serious consequences for them. So simply what she said is they would go out into the forest first, and they would spend as much time as it took to cut down all the trees that they needed to produce firewood, because that was the issue in the winter, right, is staying warm. And they would create these huge outdoor wood piles. And that would be their supply of wood for the winter. After they created those outdoor wood piles, they would break some of that wood down and they would create what they called an indoor wood pile. Okay? And then after they created the indoor wood pile, they had that wood that was right by the fire, and that was the wood that they called on the fire. So when they had the wood on the fire, the indoor wood pile, and the outdoor wood pile, they were ready for the winter. Okay? Now, so let's say the winter starts. If they burn up all the wood that's on the fire, is that family in trouble? I mean, once the winter starts, they get socked in with the snow, etc. Are they in trouble if they burn up all the wood on the fire? Why not? Okay, so they'll go to the indoor wood pile, get some more wood, and they're set. If they burn up all the wood on the indoor wood pile, is that family in trouble? Depends on. Well, they can always get to the outdoor wood pile. It's not that far away. But we'll say they're going to be inconvenienced, but they're not going to be in trouble. They'll go to the outdoor wood pile. The wood might not be as dry. It may be a little green. They're going to have to cut it down some, but all that's doable, okay? And they're back in business. If they exhaust the outdoor wood pile before the winter's over, is that family in trouble? Yeah, they are. They in fact may not make it through the winter, okay? So kind of the most important element then for a family was that they have a sufficient outdoor wood pile, right? Where do you think people tend, now they figured it out or they weren't going to make it through the winter. But if you take that and think of that as an analogy for the client acquisition process, where do you think most of us spend most of our time? On the outdoor wood pile, the indoor wood pile, or on the fire? So what's the prognosis of us making it through the winter? Right. Exactly right. So if we're spending most of our time on the fire, then in essence we are ignoring the outdoor wood pile. Because see, everything, you can think of it this way even. Everything is sourced by the outdoor wood pile. So if you've got a sufficient outdoor wood pile, you're set. All right, so that having been said, so you have that picture in mind, I'm going to draw what we call the client acquisition model. But it's based on that analogy. You can kind of see that analogy of the woodpile system. It's the same thing with businesses. So you can get a sense, or you can begin to get a sense of where social media activities at some extent begin to impact this, or how they impact this. Now I'm going to define these a little further. The forest is literally the definition of who I want to do business with. Okay, so for example, I said small business owners and sales professionals, where they're places where they congregate or aggregate. So like part of the forest for me are all the business referral groups in Raleigh. Because who goes to business referral groups? Small business owners and sales professionals, right? So this is that. This is kind of my target market, my networks, etc. But I don't know who they are by name, okay? So in essence, I can't individually interact with them to become a client because I don't know who they are, right? The outdoor woodpile are those people from here, I'm going to say, that I at least know what their name is. I have some way to connect with them, either what I call directly or indirectly, and I have a sense that they need what I want to offer. Now, when I say connect with them, it can be a phone number, a street address, an email address, or I can have someone that knows them that has agreed to introduce me to them. Okay? Now you can, but I can interact with them individually. I have access to them somehow. Okay? The indoor woodpile are those individuals that not only I know who they are by name, but they somehow indicate that they have an interest. The indoor woodpile are those individuals that indicate they've got an interest in the area that I operate. So for me, that would be business growth. Okay, so those business owners, sales professionals that somehow indicate that they have an interest in growing their business, they're on my indoor woodpile, or I'd move them to my indoor woodpile. Okay? And then on the fire simply means that they have indicated they want to know how I would solve their particular problem, or how I would specifically help them. Now, right here, all of us talk about the sales funnel, talk about prospects. In this model, this is where the sales funnel is. All this really is, in a larger business context, this is marketing. This is the sales funnel. This is where the qualified prospect shows up. Okay? Because if you kind of follow this, I want to do business with them, right? They've indicated they're interested in business growth. And when they're here, they've indicated they want to know how my business, would go about solving their particular problem or meet their need. And that defines what a qualified prospect is, okay? Then the challenge is, I'm going to call these gates, which is what condition has to change for them to move. My challenge, or any other business sales professional or business owner, is to create the opportunity for these individuals to select to move through that gate. Okay? And that can be done a number of ways. I can make some kind of offer to them that reveals their interest. Okay? I can give them an opportunity to sign up and meet with me individually if they're here, right? Which would indicate they want to know how I'd solve the problem. So for example, in my own business, to give people on the outdoor woodpile an opportunity to move to the indoor woodpile, I used to do a weekly lunch talk. And there'd be a topic like a mini workshop at every lunch talk that had something to do with business growth. Okay? And I would invite the people, in fact, the way the process worked, on Monday I'd send out an invitation to those identified individuals. Okay? Those that accepted the invitation for lunch moved to my indoor woodpile. Why? Exactly right. If they're going to come to a lunch talk about business growth, then they probably are interested in business growth. And at the end of that lunch talk, I actually would make the following statement every week for 51 weeks. And it went something like this. when people hear a discussion like this, which was the topic that had just been covered in the mini workshop while they were eating, they often wonder how that fit in their business. And I'd go on to say, my office is one exit up the road. I'm willing to sit down with anybody for up to 2 hours and explore how this particular concept would fit in your business. If you're interested in that discussion, I've identified some times and dates that I'm available. I'd have them on a sheet of paper. If one of these times and dates meets, put your name, phone number on it. That constitutes an appointment, and I look forward to meeting you then. And I do that at the end of every talk, every week. The people that signed up on that sheet moved through that gate. Is this working for you? Okay. And so then I would meet with them. I would talk with them about their problem. By now, remember, they're a qualified prospect. They feel they've got some kind of challenge or they wouldn't have made an appointment, all right? And then I would work with them, and at some point they'd inevitably say, what does Team Nimbus do? And I'd tell them what it costs, I'd tell them how it worked, and ask them if they wanted to be a client, okay? Are you beginning to see some ways that whatever you do in social media, how it overlays here, or where it overlays, or where it feeds into? And as those of you know that have familiar with inbound marketing, the inbound marketing model looks very similar to this, doesn't it? The stages are awareness, consideration, decision. It's the same thing. You have it set up so that the landing pages make a particular offer, and then they'll make it, and so if they respond to the offer that's consistent with awareness, the very next thing they get is an offer to see if they're really in the consideration stage, right? And then to see if they're in the decision-making stage, which is here, and if they don't respond, if they respond to the awareness offer, don't respond to the consideration offer, then that's what lead nurturing is all about, right? It's a very similar model. The principles of acquiring a client doesn't change even though you change the mediums, so to speak. Let me share one other thing with you that people I've worked with find very useful. There's a guy named Peter Drucker. You may or may not have heard the name, but Peter Drucker is like the guru of business. He's written the definitive books on what a business is, how a business works, etc. Now he's older than I am, so when I say there's a guy named Peter Drucker, he is long past. But his principles relative to business are the standards of business. And he says there are 3 processes in a business. In any business, there are 3 processes. One is lead generation, lead conversion, and then fulfillment. And so what I usually do for the people I work with is I overlay those 3 processes on this model so people can get a sense of it. But he goes on to say, or to the question of what do you have to do if you want to grow a business, he says you've got to focus on one of these 3 processes. Which of the 3 do you think it is? Lead generation, conversion, which is sales, or fulfillment?
I don't know.
You're big on balance, aren't you?
Yeah.
I know, but you got to take one of the 3. For this exercise, you pick fulfillment, generation, conversion, lead generation. All right, now, you remember the discussion about Little House on the Prairie? Which had to be tended to be able to get through the winter? Outdoor woodpile, right. See, there's no mistake that's overlaid there. Now, we talk about this all day long. You know why there's so much talk about sales? It's the nature of us salespeople, right? We think we're the most important thing in the world. But really, to grow a business, the place to focus is on increasing the numbers of opportunities. The reality is that the conversion rate at some point becomes a constant. around 25, 30% if you have enough opportunities. Okay, so a great sales force doesn't go from a 25, 30% closing rate to a 60, 70% closing rate. That's not really what happens, because a sales force gets up around 30% and you start adding more salespeople so they can handle more volume, actually, not so that the closing rate goes up, okay? And you only need them to handle more volume if the lead generation in that business is increasing. Now you can call it lead generation opportunities. Think of this in a very generic sense. Just like conversion, think of that in a very generic sense. Actually, now we've overlaid 3 different models, okay? One, to give you an idea how the folks, I'm going to say, on the ground of client acquisition see the world. See, I kind of like, in this model, I kind of look up and I'm looking at social media as being a way of adding to my forest, adding to my outdoor wood pile, adding to my indoor wood pile. You know, and then if it actually can convert, I'm just really thrilled, okay? But it can play a huge role in what has to happen for the business to grow, if you're looking from a client acquisition perspective. Let me put it that way. I guess there can be other uses for social media, just like in marketing, there's brand advertising and there's advertising directed towards generating leads. So from a client acquisition view, the role where social media, as I see it, fits is helping to fill these. And I'm excited no matter where it puts them. If my forest gets bigger, I can always get a large enough outdoor wood pile. If I get my outdoor wood pile at sufficient size, I've got ways to continue to move them through the client acquisition model. Okay? How many of you have heard the term smarketing? Yeah, well, there's an operative term called smarketing, which is really about sales and marketing, kind of in the context of a model like this, and how they get together so they can make and execute against supporting commitments with each other. You know, back when I was in corporate and doing sales, our big complaint was everything marketing was doing disconnected with sales. We couldn't get it, together. And in the company I was in, because I was in a very large company, had some of the best marketing talent available and had some of the best sales talent available. But there was always this. Well, smarketing is, and we thought it'd be great if we got together, but we thought the way the world was supposed to go was like this. You with me? Smarketing is the acknowledgement of this is the way it's supposed to go. And so figuring out and understanding the interconnection, allows for each of the components to generate more value, is what I'd say, and minimizes the miss. Okay? All right.